In this video, I'm going to demonstrate how to convert a height field terrain into a HDA Houdini digital asset for Unreal Engine. And in Unreal Engine, using third-person mode, I will walk around the terrain through the tunnels I built on the height fields. If you want to learn how to build this height field, please refer to two previous videos I made titled Height Fields for Beginners and Building Tunnels and Height Fields in Houdini. There's a few ways to export this height field terrain into Unreal Engine using HDA. The first way I'm gonna demonstrate is using the tunnel version, the height field terrain that has the tunnel built into the height field, where you can walk through the mountains on the height field. So there's this tunnel that goes through the mountain ranges, and I'm gonna demonstrate how to convert this height field into Unreal Engine. But because we had to convert this height field terrain, this one, into a VDB and cut tunnel a noodle looking cylinder, this, we had to haul out this tunnel area out of this height field terrain. So we hauled out a hole into the height field terrain in order to create the tunnel. But in order to do all that, we had to convert the height field terrain into a VDB and then cut the hole and then convert it back into a polygon. This is what we get. And this is the result. But since this one didn't have any of the attributes, any of the data that we needed in order to build the material in order to shade it and render it, we had to get it back. We had to get all the attributes back, and in order to do that, we needed all it to be polygons and transfer all the attribute data back into this height field polygon. In the end, we had a polygon height field terrain, and when we export this into Unreal Engine, we lose some of that landscaping features. So I'm going to show you two ways in order to export height field terrains into Unreal Engine. The first way I'm going to demonstrate is how to export this one with the tunnel that is a polygon into Unreal Engine. And then later on in the video, I'll show you the other way that you can export the height field terrain into Unreal Engine and keep all the landscaping attributes. But that one does not contain the tunnel. So this is where we left off in the previous video. Even though I had poly reduced it already, it was still really heavy to import it into Unreal. It took a long time to load. So I threw down another poly reduce and reduced it another 25%. I'm not gonna click this because it's gonna load cook forever. I will show you this, resulting in 125,000 points. So I've reduced it even further. You've noticed that I have a transform node here, and it is scaling it down by a quarter. I've made it 1/4 smaller because this height terrain is huge in Unreal Engine, which makes sense because if you're designing an environment, you want a large playable area. However, for demonstration purposes of this tutorial, I've made it even smaller so I can actually walk around my terrain in Unreal Engine in a reasonable time to show you. Now, in order to prep this height terrain for an HDA, if I just take this node over here, this height field terrain as is, and convert this node into an HDA, select this, go to Assets, New Digital Asset from Selection. If I convert it right now as is, and then import it into Unreal Engine, it will take forever to load because converting it at this point will cause it to recook everything in Unreal Engine. It will actually recook the entire erosions and everything. Now you might ask, but I have file caches everywhere. These file caches are not read in properly into Unreal Engine. Why? Because I have this $hip in every single file cache. In all these file caches, they all have $hip. This $hip does not translate. Unreal Engine does not understand this $hip. Therefore, it won't be able to find this cache file, and it'll go like the cache is empty. So you won't be able to properly import the HDA into Unreal Engine if you just simply rely on these file caches. What do? I mean, I don't want to recook this whole thing in Unreal Engine. It literally takes hours. You can still use a file cache. So after I put down my poly reduce and I made it a little smaller. I put down another file cache. Now this file cache is a little different. In order to prep it for an HDA for Unreal Engine, this file cache has a hard link. There is no $HIP. There's no expression values except for the $OS. Now $OS is the expression for getting the node name. Take this hard link, this word, the name of the node, and it will fill it in here. That's what $OS is. Now that it translates okay. However, if you have any doubts or anything, you can just rename it. Just rename it to something else. Like hard link. If you want to do that, that's fine too. As long as you give it a hard, give it an absolute link to your disk. Somewhere in your disk. Give it a spot. So right now I have it saved here. That's this. I'm going to save it one more time because I've made a few modifications just by clicking all over the place. So after you have this hard link here, put the render flag here. Let's go back up. Select this. Assets. You either create a new asset, but since I've already created it, I'm going to go to save asset and save here to update it. So now it's updated. I'm going to go over to my Unreal Engine. Here. So I take my HDA, I'll drag it over, drop it in. Now I take my HDA and I'm going to import into the level. Now you can see that it's cooking. It still takes quite a while. There you go. So now we have our height field terrain imported into Unreal Engine, which is fantastic. HDAs are such an easy way to work on game assets and then easily port them over to Unreal. I really like how this plugin is so nicely integrated. Walk around this terrain just to show you. Okay, there's my third person character. I'm going to move in to a spot where I can actually see him. Okay, I'm going to lift him up a little bit so he drops. Okay, I'm going to start at this tunnel. So I'm just going to zoom up. So I'm starting here at this tunnel, which, okay, I don't like the shading. I'm going to change the shading a little bit so it's easier to view. Okay, that's a little better. Maybe a little bit more light. Okay, that's a bit better. So there's my player start here. So he's starting at this tunnel, which is right here. My player is starting right here. Select this. I'm gonna make it Houdini generated static mesh settings. Collision complexity, project default. I'm gonna choose use complex collision as simple. Okay, and then play. Then he'll drop on. Okay, I'm just gonna walk through. Like, it's huge. So now you can play through your terrain. This is so handy. This is very convenient in order to export your height terrain and have it ready playable into Unreal Engine within a few clicks. The best thing is this is all procedural. So if I ever made any changes to the height field terrain and then update the asset in Unreal Engine without re-importing it, it'll do it automatically for you. So this is the other end of the tunnel. Let's see if I can jump up there. I can't get quite up there. So as you can see, this is huge. And this has already been reduced down. If you remember, I made this terrain smaller. A quarter smaller of the original height field terrain size. You can imagine how huge it is inside Unreal Engine. Which is something most people would want because you want a huge playable area. So if I ever made any changes to this, say make this, stretch it out, I don't know. Stretch it out like this. Oh, that's okay, I'll stretch it out just a bit like that. Less maybe. I stretched it out twice as big. So now the tunnel is like, okay, maybe a little bit more so we can actually tell when we're playing the game. So I stretched it out a bit. I'm going to update my heart link. Put the render flag here. Go back up, select this asset, save asset. I'm gonna, it's save, sorry, it's saving right here. It's done. Go to Unreal Engine, click my asset, under Houdini asset, rebuild asset. And there you go. I'm gonna demonstrate how to export this height field terrain that is not a polygon, and if you look closely, this height field terrain is still a plane. So it's still a piece of plane with a lot of displacement on it. There's no extruded base. So let's go to the last height field operation that was done on this height field terrain, which in this case would be the second erosion. Here we still have all the height field volume primitives. So we're still in the height field world. We haven't left it yet. We haven't converted it into a polygon. We're still in the height field world. And here, I'm going to throw down a file cache. And just like the other one, this file cache is an absolute path linking, pointing to a spot on my disk. So I don't use $HIP. The only one I use is $OS. So this is important when you're caching right before you go export it to Unreal Engine through an HDA. So I'm going to put the render flag here. And I had pre-cached it ahead of time. And I'm going to go to Assets, Save Asset, and update this Houdini asset. Now I'm going to go into my Unreal Engine project, find my HDA that I created, click and drag this into the Unreal Engine. Now click and drag this into the level. This time it's a little different. If you look carefully into the world outliner here, under the HDA that I created and imported into Unreal Engine, there's a landscape. So this time it's a little different. It's not like how it was before when I exported into Unreal Engine as a polygon. This time it's exported from Houdini as a height field, and it's still in the height field world. Click the height field terrain asset. Come over here into Unreal Engine into landscape mode. Now select paint. If you look down here under target layers, you'll see all the layers here. We have the bedrock, the mesa, cliffs, sediment, debris, water. Now I'm going to show you how to set up a really simple Unreal Engine material for this, just to get you started. I'm not going to go into detail onto how to set up a material like that looks good. This is only so you can use these layers and start building on this terrain. So if you right click here in this area and then create a material, we'll call it landscape and M for asset. But I already have one, so I'm going to call it landscape 2. Select your Houdini digital asset. Oh, since we're already in landscape mode for this asset, it's already selected. So all you have to do is scroll down here, landscape, for landscape materials, click and drag this material that we just created and drag it over here. Okay, now let's edit this material. Double click it. I'm just going to drag this over here and attach it to the main window. Right click this area over here, and I'm going to look for a layer blend or type landscape. That way all the landscape nodes will be filtered out, and this is the one I want, the layer blend one. I want to show you a quick way where you can create this layer blend node without typing in all these attributes, all these data, the debris, the water, the sediment, the bedrock. So I'm going to delete this. I'm going to head over to my website. I made a post just for this video. If you scroll all the way down to UE4's layer blend material node, the section where it's titled this, and just copy this code. Control C, come over to Unreal Engine, into the material editor, Control V, and it will paste in this layer blend node with all the debris, the water, the sediment, the bedrock data all filled in for you. So all you have to do is just connect your material. In this case, I only have a color because I don't want to go too deep into setting up material for Unreal Engine. And connect this end, the output of the layer blend node, to the base. Back to the manual way of setting up the layer blend node in Unreal Engine. Select this, come over here onto the left side. And it goes layers. It says 0 right now. So let's add some. Since we have quite a few, I'm going to start with 5. We have debris. So these are the names of these ones. So this is the bedrock, the mass, the mesa, the cliffs, sediment, height. Well, I'm gonna not use the height. Debris and water. So these are the ones that we want to apply a material to isolate these areas using this attribute in the material. So we can apply a certain material to it or certain color to it and shade it like that. So we have debris. I'm going to attach this to the base color. I'm going to right click here and look for constant. I'm going to look for a constant vector because I want a color. Select this, Control C, Control V to make another, to copy and paste another one. So I'm going to attach this to debris. Double click this area and I'm going to choose a color. I'm going to choose blue. Click OK. I'm going to choose red. I'm going to assign a different color to each of these. Okay. Save. Go back to my world. And now it looks a little awkward because I only assigned colors to it. If you're wondering what these stripes are, they're actually created from the terracing. If I go here, the terracing creates a mesa and a cliff. In the layer blend, I'm gonna take out the mesa. And click this arrow and then go to delete and the cliffs. Save. Let's go back. Now they're still appearing. The stripes are still visible. So I'm going to go back to Houdini. I'm going to put down a blast node. And in the blast, I'm going to put @name mesa and @name cliffs. So I'm going to delete those two attributes. Select the cache one. If you go and look at it, before you put the blast down, you'll see that the mesa and the cliffs, these two volume primitives, I'm gonna delete this. And in order to delete a volume primitive, you can throw down a blast node and just put this expression down, @name equals mesa. So it will search for everything that has a name that is mesa and one that is cliffs, and it'll delete it. So let's take a look what it looks like after the blast node. So this is what it here. So now we don't have the mesa and the cliffs. So I'm going to put my render flag here. So go up, select our terrain, assets, save asset, save it, and let it save in the corner. Okay, let's go back to Unreal Engine. Select our HDA, right click. You can rebuild all instances. So after the HDA has been updated, you'll notice that you lose your material. Click your landscape here. Click this. Come down here in the details panel. In the landscape, just select your landscape here, drag it, and reapply it to the landscape material of your HDA. And you'll see that the stripes are all gone. Now I forgot to create a bedrock layer over here. That's why it has that question mark. So I'm going to come over here to layer blend. Now I had one for debris, one for water, and one for sediment, and I deleted the mesa and cliffs. I'm going to add a bedrock. And since I have extra color nodes here, I'm going to reuse that too. Let's not use this one. Let's use green. So I'm going to delete this one. Move the yellow up. So this. Save it. Let's take a look at what it looks like. Now I hope this will start you off in the right direction into creating a landscape material for your height field terrain. Now my starting player is right in the middle. I think it's above the terrain. So I'm going to just play it. Just walk around. Now when you're designing your terrain for to be exported into Unreal Engine, you need to be aware that the size of the height field is really large, and the noise, this noise size. So this guy right now, he has a lot of trouble walking through these areas, especially if he falls down. He can't really get back up there. So you need to be aware when you're throwing down the height field noise, and he gets stuck a lot. So when you're throwing that height field noise down, you need to be careful of the noise, the amount of noise that you throw down, and the amplitude that you're using in the scale. Because if you have a lot of these tiny spikes in the terrain, it will be hard for the player to travel through the terrain. Actually, I'm gonna drop my character on one of the mountaintops. I think that would give good view of the entire layout of the terrain. Okay, I'm gonna increase this camera speed. Okay, let's try this. Okay, so this is the height filter. It's super bright. Okay. Now just to recap, this is the height field terrain that does not contain the tunnel. Once we convert the height field terrain into a VDB and then into a polygon, we can't use this method to convert it into a landscape mode into Unreal Engine. We lose the landscaping. Now I haven't found a way in order to convert it into a polygon, which is here, and then back into a height field. I haven't found a way, or I'm not even sure if that's possible. It might be. It's Houdini. Anything's possible, but I haven't found a way to easily do that, or to do that at all, actually. You can convert it, like how I showed you, from a polygon and turn it into an HDA right off there. Export it into Unreal Engine. You can just do that. There's nothing wrong with that. There is a bit of efficiency that you need to know of. Whenever you enter a tunnel, like usually in a game, when you enter a tunnel, it starts the loading screen. So when you're inside the tunnel, it doesn't make sense to hold the entire terrain in memory because you're inside the tunnel. You don't need to see or know about the outside of the tunnel. However, if you ever played a game like that and you've entered the tunnel and it triggers the loading screen, it's quite annoying. It's that seamless gameplay going right into the tunnel that makes it so awesome. And you just go inside the tunnel and outside the tunnel without starting the loading screen. However, that costs memory. So there's cost efficiency that you need to know about. There are like more techniques making it more efficient, making your game more efficient. You can do it loading by area. So as you walk to a new area, it will load areas around you. So no matter where you go, you have that seamless gameplay and you have that memory efficiency. So those are things that you need to be aware of. I hope you enjoyed this video. I might do a future video on how to build a material in Unreal Engine, or maybe a master material in. That way you'll have a game asset that's completely finished, ready to play, or ready for production, or maybe even sell it on Unreal Engine's marketplace. I think that would add some completeness to all the height field videos I've done so far. Thanks for watching and sticking to the end.